So welcome everybody to today's webinar. This is all about job hunting. So definitely a good one to get your head around and to get some good expertise from our guest as well. My name is Chantal Cooke. I'm one of the directors of NALP. Also joining us on this call is Jane Robson, our CEO. Also Nigel Davey, who looks after our marketing, and our guest today, Angus Oliver from Totally Legal, which is a job site that NALP frequently works with and is a really good place to go looking for a job if you're in the market to do so. So welcome, Angus. What we really want to know is, how do I find and identify a job that might be relevant? So, because not always, this is the thing about paralegal jobs, is that they don't always have the word paralegal in the title, because as we know, lots of people are paralegals and don't even necessarily know that that's the case. So how do I find those jobs that are perfect for me as a paralegal?
Yeah, so to start with, I think it's important to sort of establish what exactly you're looking for in your new role, and sort of get your key skills and identify what they are, and align those to sort of job descriptions and responsibilities advertised on these job boards and elsewhere. So, first point of call would be to do research into the role itself. Don't just sort of start applying straight away. A good place to start is researching job descriptions for paralegals to ascertain sort of how these job adverts may look, what sort of terminology would be used. Paralegal job description articles are sort of great sort of starting point. For example, Totally Legal have a careers advice page with an article dedicated purely just for this, to sort of outline everything that you may see in the job description page. And then, for alternative names, it's best to check the description to start with. What sort of experience is required? How many years of experience? What are the key parts of the job? And sort of you can generally sort of kind of align that of what level of role it's going to be. But a paralegal is obviously going to be the most common term used, but you've got to consider other factors, the practice area, what sort of company you're applying to, and sort of the industry. So, for example, I've in sort of my years of on Totally Legal, legal assistant is a popular term used for paralegal roles. So, especially for his field, example, conveyancing. So, conveyancing assistant is sort of interchangeably used with paralegal. So the roles are sort of pretty much the same. Legal officer, file handler, case manager is another one. They all can be used with sort of paralegal level roles, but it's just the research is sort of the base to finding these out. On job boards there are lots of ways to filter your search to establish what roles will come into this sort of paralegal net. You can filter these by location, practice area, salary, hybrid working model. On Totally Legal alone, I'm sure there's others that sort of cater to that. But by setting up these filters, you can narrow down your search to what's relevant to you specifically, and go from there, and then find what roles you need to find.
Also, just worth noting, a quick plug for NALP's social media, because of course we do work with you to promote a paralegal job of the week each week. It's from the Totally Legal website, which then goes on to NALP's social media. So if you are job hunting currently, then it's definitely worth following us on our social media channels, and you will get that job of the week coming up each time. Obviously, a different job each week, I should emphasize. So one of the things that I know a lot of people feel when they're job hunting is it can be a bit of a thankless task, obviously. And then there's that sense of, well, they're just kind of putting it out to the market because that's what you're supposed to do. And really, they've already found their ideal candidate internally, and I'm wasting my time. Is that fair, or is that a bit of a myth?
I'd say there's definitely two sides to that. If there is the case, that it's obviously frustrating as a job hunter, and it can be quite hard to determine what these sort of internal candidate jobs could be. But it doesn't, even if they are, it doesn't mean you shouldn't apply. Employers are looking for the best person for the position, and if you can show the value that you have to offer and how you would fit with that within that company, meeting the job advert requirements, you could always be considered as an external hire over potential internal promotions applications. If you are worried about this, a good a good place is, looking at jobs advertised explicitly by recruitment agencies, because, on the basis of how they work, they're not going to be advertising a job which is not going to be filled, because otherwise they're not going to get a commission. So, that's, almost a baseline to work off of is a recruitment agency. If they're advertising it, it's more than likely it's going to be legitimate. You you could do a bit of investigation if you are worried about this. So this one is kind of hit and miss. It's sort of situational, but using LinkedIn, using your LinkedIn network, lots of us have, if it's been to college, university, mutual connections from all over the place. And if you're looking at the sort of a company in question, you can sort of see, oh, have you got a mutual connection? Is there some way you can sort of talk to someone who may, work at this company? And always branch out and just ask, if is this legitimate? Is this company sort of, would they actually consider an external hire? Again, as I say, that situational, not a sort of foolproof method. Probably a more reliable way would be to contact, take the initiative, contact hiring manager, the HR team of, managing the job advert directly, and just, express your interest in the role, inquire about its status, and sort of gauge from their reaction if you've actually got a chance as an external applicant. And this direct contact is good. It's, opens the door, shows your eagerness for the role, and potentially help you stand out from a crowd for possible success.
That leads me straight on to my next question, which is actually about direct contact. So obviously you've just covered I've seen a job ad, I'm kind of want to contact them direct to check it out or whatever. What about just, there's a company that I'd really like to work for, but I haven't yet seen anything as jobs being available and so on. Can I just go to them direct and just ask them, do you have any jobs? Or does that tend to put people off? Because you often hear as well that jobs don't get advertised.
Of course, yeah, no. I think generally reaching out to firms is a good idea if you want to get that direct communication going, especially if they haven't got a current vacancy. It's the personable sort of human approach, so shows you sort of willing to go that extra mile, showing you interest, and if you can demonstrate the knowledge of the company within your sort of communication, that it does go a long way. And even if they don't have the opening, it's always good to provide a copy of your updated CV and just say, keep it on file, keep me in mind for any upcoming sort of, or if they end up making an opening for you, it's a win-win. I mean, even if nothing comes from his contact, it's great experience to be reaching out to these people and talking and sort of putting yourself out there. And if they do have a vacancy, I would just make sure you thoroughly read the advert first, and not to sort of ask silly questions sort of thing. And if there is an active advert, then don't sort of overdo it on the sales pitch, because that's what the application is actually for. So, and also make sure to have read it properly, because we get a lot who adverts which companies don't want direct communication. They will want you to communicate via the recruitment agency, or via a specific person. So just make sure to cover that, so to speak. But so in either of these cases, you may not hear back from recruiters or firms or companies you're sort of looking to work for. It is obviously frustrating, disheartening, and everything. But given the competitive nature of the market we're currently in, I think it don't sort of kind of be able to take it on the chin, really. Don't reach out too many times, sort of pick and choose your moments, sort of thing. Some employers won't always give that direct sort of feedback or comment.
That's good to know. And I think just to kind of support what you're saying, it's a little bit of a personal story, but my very first job I got by literally going around and knocking on company doors with my CV, companies that I wanted to work for, obviously, and with my CV. And I was handing my CV in at reception, and then one of the directors happened to be behind reception. And as I was leaving, he ran after me and said, actually, we are recruiting. Can I interview you now? And he did, and I got the job. So I think it just goes to show, as you say, that there are lots and lots of different ways of doing this. There's reaching out direct when you've seen a role. There's reaching out direct even if you haven't seen a role, which is what happened in my case. There was no a job available at that point, as far as anybody else was aware. And as you say, also, of course, looking at sites like Totally Legal and other recruitment sites, and also headhunters and people like that, and recruitment companies, to see whether, because that gives you the most choices, really, doesn't it? The most opportunity to succeed. And as you say, this is a bit, it's a numbers game, but a numbers game with lots of research involved. I think is probably what you're going to say, isn't it?
Definitely. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
always do your research. It's and everyone is going to be sort of different, and lots of different adverts out there. You just got to tailor your, whatever way you decide to reach out, tailor it to the company in hand.
So you mentioned at the beginning that obviously a lot of it's about research and so on. We've just reiterated that research, research, research. So when you want to apply for a job, you don't just kind of look at it and go, okay, well, here's my CV and here's my standard letter.
Mhm.
So what do you say you should focus on? What kind of is that first step to getting it right?
Well, for getting it, yeah. So I'd reckon the job advert is the first point of call. Just go through it sort of meticulously, going through the key points, how they relate to you, your skills and your experiences, and what you can how you can use those to show that you're right for the role. And yeah, you doing this, and obviously the research to the company, I can't highlight this enough. It's because a lot of people don't do it, and it it does show in sort of interviews and even in CVs or cover letters. So yeah, for example, go through their website, socials, if they've been in the news recently, to just help build a picture, A, what it's like there, what it's like to work there for you, and B, what sort of things you can then bring to the table. If they're missing something, if you can sort of fill a gap. And then some companies, well, yeah, they kind of like you to know their mission, their vision, their values. So if you can project that within your cover letter, or CV, and that's always a positive. And I've kind of touched on it already, but tailoring your CV to each job description. So it can be as simple as just creating a copy and just going through the job advert, key points, and just highlighting that within your CV. So you've almost got single CVs for each application you're doing, to really sort of nail everything you need to do, everything you need to cover. But on that, I would remember that if recruiters, or companies, if you apply to multiple roles within that company, this is more applicable to sort of recruitment agencies, I guess. But that if you don't tailor your application, you'll often get flagged as a sort of a boiler template. So this, in this case, lots of big companies and recruiters use applicant tracking systems, which will just sift through all the applications they get and highlight duplicates. Which if you use a bog standard template for all your applications, that you'll be highlighted and probably just sort of black marked, and just you won't be considered for any of the roles you applied for. If you and if general guidance on CVs and cover letters is available all across Totally Legal. We've got a paralegal CV template on our blog page, which is quite thorough and really quite helpful. And there's sorts of companies out there who will review your CV for free. So Top CV as an example, free CV review, even if it's just getting down, like nailing your structure and stuff, it really is helpful to be able to perfect it for clicking that apply button.
That's good to know all those, because I had no idea they could track if you were applying for more than one job with the same letter. That's kind of one of those, AI things where, oh, is that good or bad, I wonder. Well, good to know though. So thank you. So this is really about, as you say, for each one, it's probably, although, as we mentioned, it's a bit of a numbers game, it's all because it's not purely just about like buying 100 tickets. It's about focusing in your application. Yes, you've got to do a lot, but doing fewer well is more likely to get you the job than doing a lot badly, I guess, is what the takeaway from that is.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Quality over quantity, I guess.
Mm. So any other tips that you can give me that you haven't already covered on the application process? And then we'll talk about the interview.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you just make sure the job is right for you. If only you know the answer to that. So you can utilize job board platforms like Totally Legal. Spend some time finding jobs that suit your needs, your skills, your career goals. There's no point in applying to like putting lots of effort into a job application that you don't really want to be successful in. You'll need to be able to demonstrate drive and a desire to work for the company, and that stuff's quite hard to fake. So it's got to be something you really actually want to do. Your job board, job alerts from job boards, great tool for finding the right role. I think I might have touched on these before, but the alerts can be set up to specific areas, locations, and everything. So you'll receive specific notifications for exactly what you want, and ensuring you're only seeing jobs which you've set criteria for, that you've deemed right for you. And these sort of tools they'll send out as soon as the jobs are posted. So a lot of recruiters will get X amount of applications and then close the job off. So you want to should make sure you're getting on the page as soon as it's ready and applying. I mean, I've kind of said this, but spend time on each application. It just needs to be tailored to the job in hand, and highlight all your sort of key skills and experience, and how this is relevant to a job. AI can be a useful tool for writing the CV, cover letter. I wouldn't say writing completely. It's more honing, and put the job description or job specs into the whatever chatbot you're using, and it will churn out. Everyone knows how to sort of use the AI for tools, but it's good for sort of improving your CV, but you've got to make sure you're using your words at the end of the day, because those will be flagged as soon as you send that application off. And yeah, make sure that copy is your own. We've got some useful resources on how to use these AI tools on our blog page, to write your CV, and also using AI for your job search as well.
Talking about that kind of those words and everything, I've always been told in the past that it's quite good to use the words in the job ad in your covering letter as well, kind of thing. So you're using the same kind of language and so on, because it makes them feel more like you've taken notice of that language. Is that correct? Or does it actually then kind of flag something up with the AI?
You kind of have to find a balance. To use your keywords and make sure you're using stuff which they have highlighted within the job description. But I mean, use your best judgment. Don't overdo it. Not every sentence needs to sort of contain all the keywords or specs that they've highlighted. It's got to still feel human. So get colleagues, get friends to sort of read over. Sometimes when you've been looking at something for too long, you just sort of stuff goes over your head. Just get peer-reviewed sort of CV sort of thing. It's still got to sound human, which is where using your own words comes into the fact. Over AI is definitely, it can supplement your CV and cover letter. It shouldn't be doing the job for you.
Right. Okay, so let's say I've sent off my CV and my covering letter and so on. I'm lucky enough to have got an interview. What should I do then? I mean, do I have to jump and take the time they offer me, or can I change that around once I get to the interview? What should I do? I suspect more of them are via things like Teams and Zoom nowadays. So what kind of tips can you offer?
Well, in terms of sort of time and stuff, there's some flexibility, but it's also always try and sort of be as open as possible for timings. And I mean, video interviews, they tend to not take too long. You can usually do them over, a lunch break or end of the day or something. You should be sort of fine on that. I wouldn't muck them around too much, because especially if it's a high applicant role, you don't want to be sort of trying to sort of move too many things around, because they've got other candidates to go through as well. I mean, I've touched on this again and again, but research the company, know your stuff before going in. Potential recent cases they work on, which have been made public or something, that can be applicable for particularly legal fields. I mean, with the actual sort of interview, talking to the interviewer or if multiple interviewers, be up to date with current news, challenges, changes affecting your practice area or industry that you're in. So you can just sound more aware of the environment that you're sort of potentially moving into. Knowing your CV and job description and the job description, inside and out, is key, because the likelihood is the interviewers have used your CV to formulate the questions they want to ask. So that, you don't want to get tripped up on something you've written yourself, basically. The You can prepare for sort of the questions, but don't just revise a script. So then you come out a little bit robotic, and it's best be comfortable answering stuff, when asked, but not sort of to the point of you're just sort of reading. There are different types of interview questions. There's technical questions, just testing your knowledge of, whatever practice area you're in. Behavioral or competency-based questions. So, designed to elicit details of your behavior in past circumstances, and then applying to potentially things you'll see within the new position. And then scenario-based questions, specific examples of situations related to the job requirements. There's general FAQs like, tell me about yourself. What are your strengths, weaknesses? But rather than me list all the FAQs, I say it again, but yeah, we've got a perfect article on preparing for an interview on the blog page, which I can sort of get over to you afterwards. But yeah, there's classic tips like, dress appropriately, be on time, is, simple stuff, but you'd be surprised how many people don't do it. And then, the check if it's and as you mentioned, video interview, check your device works at least, a good sort of 10 minutes before the actual interview, if not the day before. If you need a specific software, like if you haven't got Teams or something, that can be sort of catastrophic on the day. I think, there's questions you can ask at the end of the interview as well. People, they do like to hear you sort of engage with them after. It's not just sort of them just asking you questions on questions. Even just one or two shows sort of enthusiasm and just general sort of interest within the role. We have got a useful article on questions you can ask the interviewer, and then what questions you shouldn't as well. Questions you can ask them. What are you looking for in a new hire? So, you're conscientious of the requirements and the job that you're ready to fill. What are the firm's plans for the future, or, next X amount of years? It shows you're looking into longevity into this role. You're in for the long game. I think you should avoid stuff like, how much will I be paid, or what are the benefits within the interview, unless it's brought up by the interviewer. It's just best to avoid stuff like that, because it's kind of a bit on the nose and demanding.
So the things that you can't ask, what about stuff like, because I've seen this happen, things like, oh, would it be possible to do this job part-time? Or could I negotiate something at this, in other words, it's almost like trying to negotiate something different during that interview process. Is that the time to do it? Because you're not going to move any further if they can't, in which case you might not want the job, or should you wait until later to do that kind of negotiation?
Well, stuff about this in terms of sort of part-time, full-time, working flexible hours. A lot of that should be listed in the job description before applying. So, that should be clocked. That a lot of these you should probably ask on the point of offer. So instead of bringing it up in interview, because, the interview, there's only so many stages afterwards you're going to hopefully be getting the offer. That's the point of negotiation rather than within the interview, because it could almost put a sour taste on, if it's, well, usually towards the end of the interview with the questions, it may not leave you looking in the best way at the end of it. So yeah, I would definitely recommend sort of point of negotiation or afterwards, when that's the time for sort of wiggle room with options like that.
Super, lovely. Thank you so much. Okay, we've got a few minutes left. If you've got any questions for Angus, please do pop them in the chat, and I'm going to hand over to Nigel for the ones that are currently there, which hopefully we'll be able to answer in the next few minutes.
Kaylee asked about qualifications, asking is the sort of the NALP level 4 a sufficient qualification, or would the level 7 be a better one?
Usually, and in my experience, the recruiter is always going to list the type of qualifications required within the job description under the specs, and so that's your best place to start with.
Do employers get put off from using recruiters and agencies because of the fees, and so would you be better off applying direct?
I don't think so. I think you know, we've got a whole host of recruitment consultants or agencies across Totally Legal, and you know, we always have and always will. They're there for a reason. They are effective in what they do, and I think we get a lot of big names going through recruiters as well. You know, a lot of well, for example, a lot of London Borough Councils tend to use recruitment agencies to then, you know, employ for their positions. Is there, I think it just depending on what type of job you're looking for. If it happens to be advertised for a recruiter, then I wouldn't be put off by that. Definitely, you know, take your shot, go for it, and apply. And if it's a job going directly, then this is still, yeah, go for it. I don't think there's any sort of downside of using recruiters.
Just to quickly go back to the level 7, level 4 question. Our experience at NALP is that absolutely there are jobs available with both levels of qualification. It really depends on what you're looking to do and at what level you want to enter. So obviously with a level 7 qualification, you might be able to get a slightly higher paid job or something that's more specialist, whereas with the level 4, yeah, you might be going in more at an entry level. So it really, it's not a case of you've got to have one and the other doesn't work. They both work. It just depends on what you want to do. And of course, you can work your way gradually through those qualifications if you want to progress your career or, you know, kind of leapfrog to another company and those kind of things as well. So I think, as Angus said, it's all about knowing what you want out of your career, but also knowing what that particular employer is looking for. And that will help you go. But don't be put off by the fact if you haven't done all your qualifications yet, there are most definitely jobs out there. Well, I was going to say thank you very much, Angus. That's Angus Oliver from Totally Legal. If you are in the market for getting a job at some point now, maybe in the future, then do check out their website, as they'll have lots and lots of vacancies listed there. And also do perhaps re-listen to this webinar. There's lots of really good tips. So it's good to kind of get those pushed into your brain if you're doing the job hunting thing. For members, this webinar will be available on our website sometime next week. And if you're a non-member, then I'm afraid you'll have to wait 3 months before you can listen to it again, but it will become available in about 3 months' time. Plus, Nigel has put a load of links into the chat, so do copy those if you want them, and they will be also added to the kind of webinar notes, as it were, as well, when the webinar goes live on the website. So just going to say thank you very much, Angus, for joining us. Much appreciated you sharing all your expertise with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of you as well for giving up your time to join us on one of our webinars. We always love to see you here, so thank you very much. And don't forget, our next webinar is all about being a cost draft person or a cost lawyer. There is a difference. We'll explain the difference. And that webinar is on the 10th of April. And we really look forward to seeing you then. Thanks ever so much.